Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a histogram. Histograms are super similar looking to bar graphs, but they're used to display quantitative data rather than categorical. The bars are contiguous, indicating that the scale is continuous. The bars have to be touched to each other. They can't be separated. All right. So what we have is we have this data set of the grades on Mr. Nobody's AP Russian final exam for 30 students. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about putting these into your calculator. All right. We need to find the lowest number and the highest number and all the points that lie in a range. The absolute most efficient way to do this is your calculator. So here's my calculator screen. This is just slightly newer version of a software. Yours has like a gray screen. This one has a white screen for the calculator, and that's fine. So what we're going to do is you're going to hit the house up here. You're going to pick a new document. Okay. And I want you guys to pick a list and spreadsheet. You guys have probably never used parts 4 and 5, and that's pretty much all we're going to use this year, and a calculator page. So we're going to pick a list and spreadsheet, and what you're going to do is you're going to type in those data values. Okay. So we're going to type in those data values. So we've got 56. Just keep on typing them in. Okay. Notice number 66, the last data point, is at 30, which is good because there are 30 data points. Now, what I want you guys to notice is that we can work with this data. We're going to use these features nonstop all year. If you go up to the top, just scroll up, all right, and then you go up to this very top box. This very top box is where you can name your data set. When you name your data set, you never want to pick a single letter. Because it also has single letters for the columns. So if I put just a G for grades, then there's also a column G over to the right. And so you never want to use single letters. So I'm going to type in grades. I'm going to press enter. Notice that when I pressed enter, it went from italics to solid. This second box here is got an equal sign. That's when you can put equations and you can transform data. We'll do that later in the chapter. All right. Now what I can do is one of the nicest features right here is I can go up to the top. Okay. So I went up to the top box. I hit the up arrow one more time, and now it highlights the whole data. And then what you can do is you can hit Control Menu. And if you click Control Menu, this pop-up window will come up. Nope, just kidding. Menu, I'm sorry, not control menu, just plain menu. Hit menu, hit actions. I'm having a brain moment. Why? Oh, did they change it? Oh. Menu, actions, sort. There it is. Okay. You want to go, so let's back up. You're going to go menu, actions, sort. And when you sort your data, okay, we want to sort it in ascending order. And you press OK. This will only work if you've highlighted the whole column. I believe your coloring is a little different when you highlight if you have the older version instead of this new version. So you go up to the top, highlight. Now I can see that my lowest data point was 35. And if I scroll down to the bottom, my highest data point was 89. And my data points are in order, which is going to be super helpful in a few minutes as I make my histogram. All right. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at making a histogram. All right. One of the important things, if we look here at these directions, all right, it says in the space below, develop a frequency distribution. I'm going to make a table. A frequency distribution is a table of how frequently these data points happen. And I want to include these items: class limits or boundaries, the frequency, the relative frequency. All right, and we're going to erase this. So ignore cumulative frequency and relative cumulative frequency. But it's important, I want you to break this into 7 classes. So the classes are the bars. How many bars do we want? If we have data points from 35 to 89, I don't want 20 bars. 20 bars is way too many for a data set that narrow. Okay, so I decided to give you guys 7 classes. There's lots of ways to do this. I'll show you how we can manipulate it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this pattern to figure out our class width. You can find your class width by saying max value minus the minimum value divided by your number of classes. So I did 89 minus 35, and I divided by 7. When you divide that, you're going to get 7.7. No matter what this decimal is, even if it's a 7.1, you would round it up to 8. Okay, so no matter what, you're always going to round your class width up a number to the next whole number. Okay, so if it was 7.01, it would still round up to the next, okay, to be 8. And then what I do is I start at my minimum. If my minimum is 35, then my first class limit is going to be, if I count, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. All right, I literally just count on my fingers to get my 8 spots. So you'll see I did 35 to 42. Another way you can write it is with a closed bracket of 35 and then an open bracket of 43, meaning it starts at 35 and it goes up to but doesn't include 43. You might be saying, well, where's 2 coming from? 2 comes from my list. If I go back to my calculator, how many data points are between 35 and 42? Or 35 and up to 43, but not including 43. There's only 2 of them. Okay. If I go to the next one, if this ends at 42, then the next class is going to start at 43, right? So it starts at 43, including 43, and it goes up to and includes 50, or since these are all whole number grades, doesn't include 51. I go back to my calculator and I say, oh, there's 2 numbers, right there, okay, that will include that. All right. Notice I didn't include 51 because it goes up to 51, but it doesn't include that. So then I say, all right, next one is 51 to 58. Okay, that's where it would be included, your limits. Okay, you can write it either way, and I'm going to show you why either way is okay to write it. So then I go ahead, I count, I have 51 was up here, 51, 52, 53, 56, 57. That's 4, because then that goes into the next class. As I continue on in that process, I wind up with all of these classes. Make sure that your last class, it doesn't matter if you write it in this notation or this notation. This notation is what the calculator uses, which I'll show you in a moment, how you can see it there. But you have to make sure that this top class includes your max. Our max was 89. Don't stop it at 89. Because then the last class won't be the same width as all the others. One of the most important things is that they all have to be the same width. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to double check that my frequency, if you add these all up, I get a sample size of 30, n equals 30, n is your sample size symbol. And n equals 30 is important because we need to make sure that we're getting the right sum. Okay, we have 30 data points. We double checked, we got 30 here, perfect. So then here, you might be saying, well, Ms. McMichael, what's going on with this relative frequency? Your relative frequency is your percentage or your proportion. This class had 2 out of 30. So relatively speaking, that was 0.067 or 6.7% of the students. This class also had 2. So 2 out of 30 was another 6.7% of the students. This class had 4. So this score of 51 to 58 was 13.3% of the students. This score, 67 to 74, was the highest frequency, which means this is called your modal class. Your mode is the highest frequency, so modal, M-O-D-A-L, is your highest occurring class, right? We had the most data points in this window. It was 26.7% of the students. If you're asked to graph it, I developed my graph down here. On my dependent axis, I have my number of students. On my independent axis, I have my grades on a final, right? So I'm labeling. This is my frequency. This is my scenario, right? This is the variable that was being counted. If we analyze this graph, what could we find for our analysis? Okay, if you were to describe this distribution, hopefully you'd say the center is somewhere here. okay, because it's going to be your mode. It's in the middle, okay. You're going to have the shape is a slight left skew. It's being pulled down to the left. Our spread is a big spread. It's 89 minus 35. 54 is our range. That's a really big spread. And I made a note that 67 to 75 is the modal class. How we read a graph like this on the bottom is it includes the number on the left and it doesn't include the number on the right. So this one includes 43 but doesn't include 51. This class here includes 51 but doesn't include 59. All right, so it includes the number on the left and it doesn't include the number on the right. When you go to make the next graph, it asks you to develop a relative frequency histogram. So it's asking you to deal with the relative frequencies, which are your percentages. Notice the x-axis stays the same. The y-axis changes to percentages, but the shape of the graph is identical because proportionally, this is 2 out of 30. This is 2 out of 30. Well, this was 2 out of 30. This was 2 out of 30. We're just representing it differently over here, okay, on your vertical axis. You're just representing it by, instead of number of students, this time we're talking about the percent of students. All right. Your bookwork is down here at the bottom for this section, but I also want to show you how to do this on your calculator. This is so neat. So if you come back to your calculator, now what we're going to do is we're going to add a page to our document. All right. Make sure that your data set is titled up here. You called it grades. So to add a page to your document, you're going to hit Control plus page. Okay. See how Control Doc above Doc says plus page? I'm going to do Control Doc. And I'm going to add this, a data and statistics page. This is where we graph our data sets. This graph is on the XY plane, parabolas and whatnot. This data and statistics is how we graph data sets. Now, right now, that's a mess. What you do is you take your cursor, you come down here, you click to add a variable, and you click grades. It's the prettiest little dot plot ever. Gives us a dot plot. You can hover over them to see each number. Okay, sometimes they stack them weird, so you just have to be careful. Like 71 belongs down here, they just couldn't fit it, but it doesn't really belong up high, it belongs down low. Now what you can do, this is where you're going to hit Control Menu. If you hit Control Menu, make sure your cursor is not in this variable button. Click like out here, hit Control Menu, and you can change it to a histogram. That was pretty cool, right? If you want to undo it, you can do Control Z, just like on a keyboard for a computer. But then if you want to redo it, you could just go back. So I have my histogram. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, wait a minute, this is not 7 classes. Last time it said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is 11 classes. That's a lot of classes for a small range of data points. So I'm going to change it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Control Menu again. And when you do Control Menu, now you have a choice for bin settings, and the bins are the bars. And I want to make each bar, be an equal bin width. The width here is how wide it was when we found it back at the top of the frequency distribution, that table. We said that the bin width or the class width should be 8. The alignment you set to be your minimum data point. Our lowest data value was 35 in this problem. And when you do that, okay, now notice it cut off the top of my graph. So what I can do is I can do Control Menu again. I can do Zoom and pick Data. Don't do Zoom Out because you don't really have control over that. Zoom Data means it fits your data set. And you'll notice the bottom axis counts by 5 still, right? 5, 10, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. But when you hover over each bar, it gives you the interval notation we used and how many points? 2 points. This was also 2 points. This was 4 points. This was 6. This had a frequency of 8. And it gives you your intervals right there. So what's really nice is you could actually Like they don't usually ask you to draw this table, like write this table out. Sometimes you need to, sometimes you don't. So I wouldn't worry too much about the table, but you do have to be able to create a histogram. So some students are better paper thinkers and they like to set up the table on their own, right? These interval notations are what I just showed you on the calculator when you hover over each of the bars. These frequencies, this was 2 points, 2 points, 4 points, 6 points, like data points. But lots of students, as you get more comfortable with the calculator, they set this up first. And when you set this up first, then you can just go from there. You can pull the data out of the histogram to create the table. Like you don't necessarily have to scroll through the list and count how many points are in each class. It's kind of annoying, especially if a huge data set, and that's really annoying. So if you want, you can just click through here and figure out what's what. I don't know. I like it. We will practice this a lot more, but make sure you practice tonight as you're going through stuff. Okay.